Hashtag kindness stories, hashtag emotional shorts, hashtag heart touching. My dad can fix it, the little girl whispered to the millionaire stranded beside her Ferrari. The red Ferrari looked like a dropped jewel on the side of the dusty country road. Its polished surface, now dulled by a thin coat of grit, reflected the endless stretch of farmland around it. Cornfields swayed lazily in the late afternoon breeze, and somewhere in the distance, a tractor hummed like a tired bee. Beside the car stood Victoria Langford, heels sinking into gravel, silk blouse clinging uncomfortably in the heat, phone pressed to her ear. No signal, she muttered, pulling the phone away to glare at it as though betrayal were personal. The woman who owned skyscrapers in 3 cities and had assistants to schedule her coffee breaks was stranded. Alone, with a dead engine, Victoria had been driving herself for once, a rare, impulsive decision after a tense board meeting. She'd wanted silence, distance, and the hum of an engine she loved. Instead, 10 miles outside the nearest town, the Ferrari sputtered, coughed, and rolled to a humiliating stop. She'd tried everything she knew, which admittedly wasn't much beyond pressing the ignition repeatedly and whispering threats about expensive repairs. The road was empty, until it wasn't. A rusted pickup truck appeared in the distance, rattling forward like it had more stories than miles left in it. It slowed as it approached, then stopped a few yards behind her. Victoria stiffened. The driver's door creaked open, and out jumped a little girl, no older than 7. Her brown hair was tied into uneven pigtails, and she wore a faded yellow dress with a patch stitched carefully at the hem. The driver's side opened next. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, his plaid shirt rolled at the sleeves, hands stained with oil that no soap had ever quite defeated. The little girl walked ahead of him, bold and curious. She stopped near the Ferrari and stared, wide-eyed. "Daddy," she whispered loudly, "it's like the car from my dream." Victoria blinked. The man tipped his cap politely. "Afternoon, ma'am." "Trouble." Victoria hesitated. Her entire life had been built on caution, contracts, background checks, security teams. Accepting help from strangers on a quiet rural road wasn't exactly on her approved list. But the sun was sinking lower. "Yes," she admitted carefully. "It just stopped." The little girl stepped closer, examining the Ferrari like it was a wounded animal. "My dad can fix it," she said softly, glancing up at Victoria with absolute certainty. There was no arrogance in her voice. Just faith. Victoria almost smiled. "I'm sure it's more complicated than that." The man chuckled. "Most things are, ma'am. But sometimes they ain't." He approached the car slowly. "Mind if I take a look?" Victoria studied him. His truck had the name, Harper's Auto Repair, painted faintly on the door. The letters were chipped, but they were there. "You own a shop?" she asked. "Small one," he replied. "Couple miles back that way. Been fixing engines since I could hold a wrench." The little girl nodded proudly. "He fixed Mrs. Porter's tractor and Mr. Jenkins' boat and the school bus once." Victoria exhaled. "Please, go ahead." The man, Daniel, according to the name stitched on his shirt, lifted the hood. Steam curled upward like a surrender flag. He worked quietly, listening to the engine the way some people listen to music. Victoria found herself watching him instead of checking her useless phone. "You from the city?" he asked casually. "Yes. Big job." "You could say that." The little girl wandered closer to Victoria, peering up at her heels. "Does it hurt to walk in those?" she asked. Victoria looked down, surprised. "Sometimes. My teacher says beauty isn't supposed to hurt." Victoria let out a soft laugh she hadn't expected. "Your teacher sounds wise." "She cries sometimes," the girl added thoughtfully. "But she still smiles at us every day." Children had a way of saying things that landed without warning. Daniel straightened. "Looks like a busted fuel line. Probably got nicked by road debris." Victoria frowned. "Is that bad?" "It's inconvenient," he corrected gently. "But not bad." He returned to his truck and grabbed a small toolbox. "I can patch it up enough to get you moving," he said. "Won't be pretty, but it'll get you to town." Victoria felt something unfamiliar stir, relief that didn't come from a corporate solution or a paid service. "Thank you," she said quietly. The little girl stepped beside her again. "My name's Ellie," she offered. "Victoria, are you rich?" Ellie asked without hesitation. Daniel coughed from under the hood. "Ellie, what? She looks rich." Victoria considered lying. Instead, she nodded. "Yes." Ellie studied her carefully. "Does that make you happy?" The question was so direct it felt like a spotlight. Victoria opened her mouth to give a polished answer, the kind she used in interviews. But the truth slipped out instead. Sometimes. Ellie seemed satisfied with that. My dad says fixing things makes him happy, she said. Even when we don't get paid much. Daniel's voice floated out from the engine. Ellie, it's true, she insisted. Victoria crossed her arms lightly. You don't make much. Daniel shrugged as he tightened something. Enough to keep the lights on. Not enough to fix the roof yet. But we manage. And you're content with that. He glanced at her, then back at his work. Content's a funny word. I'm tired most days. But when Ellie laughs or when an engine roars back to life, feels like I did something useful. Useful. Victoria owned companies that employed thousands. She signed contracts worth more than this entire county probably earned in a year. But when was the last time she felt useful? 20 minutes later, Daniel wiped his hands with a rag. Try it. Victoria slid into the driver's seat, heart oddly nervous. She turned the key. The Ferrari purred, not perfectly, but alive. She stepped out slowly. It's temporary, Daniel said. You'll want a proper repair soon. I'll have it handled, she replied automatically. She reached into her purse and pulled out her wallet. Daniel held up a hand. Just pay it forward. Victoria paused. Excuse me, he shrugged. Help someone when you get the chance. She stared at him. No charge. He smiled. Didn't feel right leaving you stranded. Ellie beamed. See, my dad can fix anything. Victoria knelt suddenly, bringing herself eye level with the little girl. Not anything, she said softly. But today, he fixed more than you know. Ellie tilted her head, confused but pleased. Victoria stood and extended her hand to Daniel. Thank you. Their handshake was firm, equal. She drove away slowly, watching them in her rearview mirror until they disappeared into the golden light. 2 weeks later, Daniel stood inside his modest repair shop, examining a cracked roof beam with a sigh. Ellie sat on a stool nearby, coloring. A black SUV pulled up outside. Daniel frowned. He didn't get many visitors who drove vehicles like that. The door opened. Victoria stepped out, this time in simple jeans and flats. Daniel blinked. Car breakdown again, she smiled. No. Behind her, another vehicle pulled up, a truck loaded with lumber and supplies. I looked up your business, she said. You're behind on permits because you couldn't afford the renovations. Daniel stiffened slightly. Ma'am, I don't need charity. I know, she said gently. This isn't charity. Ellie ran forward. You came back. Victoria crouched in, hugged her lightly. I did. She stood and met Daniel's guarded gaze. You said to pay it forward, she reminded him. So I am. She gestured to the truck. Materials for your roof. And a grant, set up in your shop's name. No strings attached. It's structured as a small business investment fund for rural mechanics. Daniel stared at her. Why? Victoria hesitated. Because I've built things my whole life, she said slowly. But somewhere along the way, I forgot what it feels like to fix something that matters. She glanced at Ellie. Your daughter asked me if being rich makes me happy. Daniel's expression softened. I've been thinking about that every day since. The construction crew began unloading materials. This isn't about guilt, Victoria continued. It's about gratitude. You reminded me that success isn't measured in zeros. It's measured in impact. Ellie slipped her small hand into Victoria's. My dad says engines need the right fuel, she said thoughtfully. Victoria smiled. He's right. Daniel exhaled slowly, pride wrestling with humility. Finally, he nodded. All right, but you're staying for dinner. Victoria laughed, a real, unfiltered sound. I'd like that. As the sun dipped low again over the fields, the repair shop buzzed with new energy. Hammers echoed. Ellie spun in circles. Daniel stood a little taller. And Victoria, for the first time in years, felt something settle inside her, not the rush of closing a deal or the thrill of a rising stock price. But something steadier, purpose. Because sometimes, it isn't the millionaire who rescues the world. Sometimes, it's a little girl with patched sleeves and unshakable faith who whispers the words that fix a heart long before an engine. My dad can fix it. And sometimes, he does. .1500 WAD.